Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The sun dipped below the distant hills, casting an orange glow over the small town of Mallory Creek. Nestled in the tranquil embrace of nature, its streets were lined with quaint shops and family-owned diners, places where everyone knew one another. But as night fell, the comforting hum of daily life faded away, replaced by shadows of secrets lurking just beneath the surface. For the unsuspecting residents of Mallory Creek, any semblance of normalcy shattered on an October evening in 2018. It was a night when the crisp autumn air grew heavy with anticipation, the scent of fallen leaves mixing with a muted sense of foreboding. An ordinary Friday, filled with thoughts of the weekend ahead, suddenly found itself marred by an extraordinary event: a missing girl. Lucy Thompson, a bright-eyed 16-year-old with dreams of becoming a photographer, had vanished without a trace. Her parents, Michael and Sarah, had turned their home upside down in search of their daughter. The local authorities were notified, and soon, the flickering blue and red of police lights cast an eerie glow over the neighborhood. Each hour that passed deepened the shadows cast by Lucy's absent confusion and despair, intermingled with whispered questions. The tight-knit community clung to hope, but as days turned to weeks, they were left to grapple with a reality that seemed unthinkable. It was not merely a case of a runaway or a lost girl. Something darker loomed, challenging their perception of safety in their serene town. As the search escalated, the clock began its unforgiving countdown, marking time in a case that would forever change the fabric of Mallory Creek. The victim, Lucy Thompson, was not just a name in a police report. She was a vibrant soul, a girl brimming with potential and a fierce passion for photography. Her life revolved around the small, picturesque moments that others overlook: raindrops clinging to spider webs, the golden light of sunrise breaking through the trees. Friends described her as the type who could find beauty in the ordinary, and she carried her camera everywhere, capturing the world through her unique lens. At Lakeview High, Lucy was known for her kindness and infectious laughter, often bringing together a group of students who shared her enthusiasm for art. Her teachers praised her creativity, seeing in her the spark that could ignite a lifelong career in photography. As a sophomore, she had already begun networking with local artists, hoping to land an internship by the following summer. She dreamt of bright lights and art galleries, far beyond the tranquil confines of Mallory Creek. However, as with many bright young minds, Lucy also harbored shadows, an emotional landscape painted with the struggles of adolescence. Recently, her friends noted an uncharacteristic shift in her demeanor. Lucy seemed distant, pulling away during conversations that once flowed easily. There were whispers of a rocky relationship with her boyfriend, Jason, and hints of stress from keeping her academic grades up while managing extracurricular activities. The week before her disappearance, Lucy had taken to her camera with fervor, snapping photos that reflected a sense of desperation, mixed with beauteous self-portrait, in a way. A glimpse into her heart, perhaps. Friends later recounted how she always spoke of wanting to leave Mallory Creek, eager to explore the broader world. But they could never have imagined it would come to this, a frantic search for a girl who had seemingly vanished into thin air. As the search began anew each morning, Lucy was not just absent. She had become a complex symbol of the challenges faced by teenagers, of dreams interrupted and lives unmoored. The community rallied, but at the heart of their efforts lay a profound sense of loss, a longing to bring back the girl who had captured their hearts with her lens. The crime scene, the search for Lucy Thompson, had reached a critical juncture, and each passing day felt heavier with uncertainty. As investigators met at the small command center set up just outside the Thompson family home, a call came through that would shift the focus of the case. A hiker had stumbled upon something alarming near the banks of the crooked riverbend, a popular spot Lucy frequently visited. What had initially been perceived as a sanctuary now morphed into an ominous backdrop for the unfolding investigation. The area was dense with trees. Tall evergreens loomed overhead, their needles whispering secrets in the wind. A narrow trail meandered down toward the river, where the water flowed briskly over smooth, worn stone. The air was laced with the earthy scent of dampness and decay, a stark contrast to the vibrant life surrounding them. As police arrived, they marked the perimeter with caution tape, a striking yellow that stood out against the muted greens and browns of the forest floor. As officers combed through the underbrush, something glinted in the fading light, partially buried in the leaves and twigs. It was a small black camera, its lens cracked, presumably Lucy's. The discovery sent chills rippling through the search party, a profound sense of foreboding filling the air. What had started as a search for a missing girl now felt like the unfolding of a sinister narrative, plunging them deeper into trepidation. Further examination revealed a set of small footprints scattered around the area, leading to the water's edge. But the trail abruptly ended. There were no signs of a struggle, and no indications as to where Lucy might have gone from there. It was as if she had simply melted into the very terrain that once offered her solace. Meanwhile, the camera held its own secrets, images stored within, waiting to tell a story of that fateful day. Detective Rachel Foster, known for her tenacity, knelt down beside the camera, her heart heavy with the weight of what lay before her. She couldn't shake the feeling that a piece of Lucy was forever anchored in this location. A poignant reminder of her absence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of violet and orange, the atmosphere grew dense with tension. The sense of urgency pressed upon them. Answers were needed, and time was running out in a case that felt all too real, yet curiously distant. The early investigation. In the following days, the atmosphere in Mallory Creek began to change. A palpable tension hung in the air, weaving through conversations in the local diner and at the grocery store, shaping the very fabric of daily life. Faces that once openly smiled now wore expressions of worry, as the community drew together, bonded by a singular purpose: to find Lucy Thompson. Detective Rachel Foster initiated a methodical early investigation, poring over every detail surrounding Lucy's disappearance. Her first step was to interview friends and family to build a comprehensive timeline, hoping to uncover any clues that might have slipped through the cracks. She learned about Lucy's interests, her friendships, and even her recent struggles, pieces of a puzzle that would need to fit together perfectly if they were to make any headway. Jacob, Lucy's best friend, sat in the dim interrogation room, his hands fidgeting as he recalled the last time he saw her. He described an outing just days before she went missing. They had spent the afternoon at Riverbend, developing their photography skills. She seemed off, Jacob admitted, his voice shaky, like she was holding something back. Rachel noted the shift in his tone, questioning whether he might know more than he let on. Next came Jason, Lucy's boyfriend, who appeared visibly distraught. She told me she needed space. I thought it was normal teen stuff, he stammered, avoiding eye contact. I didn't think his voice cracked as emotion surged, tears threatening to spill. Despite his anguish, Rachel observed him closely, sensing layers beneath his grief. Was Jason's anxiety genuine, or was it hiding deeper truth? Meanwhile, back at the station, forensic teams meticulously examined Lucy's camera. The images within offered tantalizing insights into her last days. On what appeared to be the final day she was seen, Lucy had taken a series of photographs at Riverbend, each composed with care. The last captured an ethereal fog rising from the water, an enchanting scene tinged with melancholy, haunting in its beauty. The deeper the investigation dove into Lucy's world, the more complex and convoluted became. As Rachel pieced together the fragments of Lucy's life, questions loomed larger than answers. Who was she during those final days? And more importantly, what had pulled her into the darkness? Each discovery intensified the stakes, pushing them faster toward an uncertain resolution, one that felt all too distant. The dead ends. Days turned into weeks, but the search for Lucy Thompson proved more elusive than the townsfolk believed. As autumn settled firmly over Mallory Creek, with leaves swirling like whispers in the wind, detectives navigated the rough terrain of both the investigation and their own mounting frustration. The initial fervor of urgency gave way to a suffocating sense of stagnation, the trail growing colder by the hour. Detective Rachel Foster found herself reorganizing leads like the scattered advice of well-meaning townspeople. Every tip had been exhausted rumors of sightings, bursts of hopeful calls to her phone, ultimately leading to nowhere. She spent hours canvassing the neighborhood, knocking on doors, and revisiting locations pivotal to Lucy's life. But where she turned, the answers remained just out of reach. Even the school had yielded little. Students spoke in hushed tones about Lucy's struggles, the rumors bobbing to the surface as ripples of concern fanned across the community. Yet, none seemed to grasp the gravity of her disappearance. Local authorities arranged a town hall meeting, inviting townsfolk to come forward with information. But as Rachel addressed the seated crowd, a sea of blank expressions greeted her. A mixture of uncertainty and detachment hung in the room, as if Lucy's absence were just another news cycle to them. Desperate, Rachel revisited the evidence from the search at Riverbend. The forensic team had managed to extract a few files from Lucy's damaged camera. Each photograph rattled around her mind like shards of glass fragments of Lucy's artistry, now devoid of context. The mist over the water, the world encased in shadows. In the labyrinth of her images, Rachel couldn't help but feel Lucy had been trying to convey something, a cry for understanding lost among the brilliant colors. Yet, it was not the imagery, but rather the haunting silence of unanswered questions that loomed over the investigation. Without concrete leads, the community's hope began to sink, intertwining with fear. Each morning, the local paper published updates, but the headlines became more muted with each passing week. What had once been a spirited plea for help turned into a simple notice. Lucy Thompson, still missing. Rachel felt a gnawing sense of responsibility pressing against her heart. She had barely scratched the surface, and with each dead end presented to her, desperation seeped into the cracks of possibility. With every fleeting lead that faded, so too did the community's spirit. Mallory Creek was no longer as pristine as it had appeared, a town veiled beneath resurfaced anxieties, waiting apprehensively for the truth to emerge from the shadows, whispering secrets of an unresolved case. A break in the case. Just as hope began to wane in Mallory Creek, a flicker of light broke through the gloom. It arrived on an overcast Tuesday, when an unexpected call reached Detective Rachel Foster. At the station, an anonymous tipster had reported some strange activity outside of town. Without hesitation, Rachel gathered her team and drove out to a secluded area south of the riverbend. An unmarked dirt road threaded through thickets of trees that filtered the light into a muted glow. Arriving at the location, the atmosphere shifted. Shadows danced upon the ground as the team made their way into the brush. It was here that they met Derek, the informant. He was a local handyman known to be resourceful, often poking around properties that had fallen into disrepair. "I saw someone out here," Derek began, anxiety edging his words. "They were acting suspicious, hiding something." He gestured toward an area just off the beaten track, where the foliage abruptly thinned. With hearts pounding, the officers uncovered a shallow dugout area, partially covered with leaves and branches. Rachel squatted down, brushing aside debris, and uncovered something that sent chills racing up her spine, a piece of clothing, evidently belonging to Lucy. The color was unmistakable, a pale blue shirt she was known to wear often. Surrounding the fabric, the earth had been freshly disturbed. Rachel's heart pounded audibly. This was the first tangible evidence suggesting that Lucy had not merely wandered off. As they worked quickly to secure the scene, Rachel felt the air grow thick with urgency. Nearby, a faint glimmer caught her eye, a thin silver bracelet, adorned with charms that Lucy had received from her parents for her 16th birthday. Unmistakable, the item sent a thunderous signal of the potential unraveling of a deeper narrative. The crime lab was soon on site to conduct the forensic analysis needed, but the emotional weight of the discovery pressed heavily on Rachel. This was no longer just a case of a missing girl. They were staring down the throat of a possible crime scene, everything shifting into sharp focus, defined not just by loss, but by the reality of what it could mean. As that flicker of hope flickered to a flame, the brigade began to assemble a timeline based on Derek's account, noting anything that might connect to the activities in the area leading up to Lucy's disappearance. Now, a new path was unfurling before them, illuminated by unanswered questions. Who had acted so brazenly to hide Lucy's clothing so close to home? And why had no one come forward sooner? What began in the dim light of uncertainty was shifting toward a promise of potential. The case was alive again, and Rachel felt the pull of determination surge through her, driving her forward in pursuit of the truth. The search would recommence, guided now by the palpable threads that connected Lucy to the heart of Mallory Creek's hidden stories. The suspect. As the pieces started to align following the discovery at the secluded site, the investigation took an unexpected turn. Detective Rachel Foster and her team scrutinized local records, searching for individuals who might have been in the vicinity on the day Lucy disappeared. Among names that littered the database, one stood out not for his prominence, but for the unsettling reputation that clung to him like a shadow. Bradley Wilcox, a 34-year-old resident of Mallory Creek, was known for his troubled past, a figure previously involved in petty crimes. He had lingered on the fringes of town life, and after serving time for unrelated offenses, whispers of his return had stirred the community, a specter that evoked both concern and intrigue. It was clear that he lacked a firm grip on reality, often spotted muttering to himself as he roamed through the streets. Derek, the informant who had originally led Rachel to Lucy's clothing, described seeing Bradley lurking near the same area leading up to the disappearance. He looked off like he was watching someone. Derek recounted nervously. "People around town say he gets into trouble. You know, he never really left Lucy alone, always trying to get in her head." Derek's words weighed heavily on Rachel. There was a sense of urgency to connect the dots. The next day, an unmarked police car pulled into Bradley's driveway, a shabby place where paints peeled from the walls and the weeds grew wild. As Rachel stepped out, she steadied herself against the weight of what might await. She was ready to confront the man, now tied to the unfolding mystery that had gripped Mallory Creek. When Bradley emerged, his demeanor was both careless and sly, eyes flickering with a mix of calculation and defiance. Rachel introduced herself and asked if they could talk. "Well, I'll listen," he replied, leaning against the doorframe like a man who had long since resigned to life's challenge. Questions poured forth, each response from Bradley more evasive than the last. He shrugged off inquiries about Lucy, a girl he had shown an unsettling fixation on while simultaneously insisting he was harmless. "I don't know anything about that girl," he said too quickly, too defensively, yet his eyes flickered under the weight of scrutiny. "Is she another runaway, huh?" As Rachel probed deeper, seeking inconsistencies in his story, a thread of unease coiled in her gut. It was not merely his answers, but the undercurrent of something darker, the twinge of fear that lay dormant beneath his flippant demeanor. She left, but not without a lingering glance back. Bradley was a puzzle with jagged edges. Back at the station, the lead detective shared her findings with the team, laying out a newfound urgency to dig into Bradley's alibi, his connections within the community, and any past encounters with Lucy. The evidence was still thin, but with the connection to the clothing and Derek's testimony, Rachel felt they were on the verge of revealing secrets that had long slumbered beneath the surface of their peaceful town. As the investigation gained momentum, the question loomed larger than ever. Was Bradley Wilcox merely a haunted soul? Or was he inextricably linked to the darkness that had swallowed Lucy Thompson whole? The chilling uncertainty prickled the air, raising the stakes for both Rachel and the very fabric of Mallory Creek. The trial, after months of painstaking investigation, the time had come for justice to take center stage in Mallory Creek. The trial of Bradley Wilcox, charged with the kidnapping of Lucy Thompson, cast a long shadow over the once peaceful town. The courthouse, typically a place of routine civil matters, transformed into a crucible of emotions, where anxiety collided with the hope for closure. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as townsfolk filed in a mosaic of familiar faces, neighbors, and friends. The air itself seemed to hum with tension, a collective breath held, waiting for the unfolding of the story they had followed with bated breath for so long. Detective Rachel Foster took her seat among the gathered crowd, a witness to the culmination of the tireless journey she had undertaken. The prosecution laid out a gripping narrative, painting Bradley as a man burdened by his darker impulses, someone who had fixated on Lucy before her disappearance. They unveiled evidence, whispers from community members who had spotted him near Riverbend the day she vanished, frantic 911, calls made by disturbed locals, and the damning testimony of Derek, who vividly recalled seeing Bradley. Around that secluded area. As the trial progressed, it became increasingly clear that the prosecution aimed to construct an inescapable web of guilt. They introduced Lucy's stolen belongings, clothing, her silver bracelet, physical manifestations of a harrowing fate. Each piece told a chilling story of a girl who had exuberantly pursued her dreams of art, only to confront a malevolence that extinguished her light. Bradley remained unmoved, the stoic mask he wore betraying no emotion as witnesses recounted their experiences. The defense leaned into his troubled past, painting him as a man who had battled personal demons, but was ultimately not a killer. They encouraged the jurors to question the reliability of witnesses, to probe the validity of the evidence that had been gathered in haste. Behind the courtroom's intimidating confines, Rachel maintained a vigilant watch, noting the nuances of each argument, the shifts in Bradley's stance as the pressure mounted. She felt an intensity building within her, a desire for justice that had been sown through months of tireless work. There was no escaping the truth. She had to believe in the weight of her findings. As the trial wound toward its conclusion, the jury gathered for deliberation, their fates intertwined with the victims' stories. Those moments stretched into eternity, each tick of the clock echoing in the silent chamber a reminder of the days spent searching for answers. When the jury returned, the courtroom held its breath, fear mingling with anticipation. The foreman stood, a stillness enveloping the room. In a voice thick with gravity, he delivered the verdict: guilty on all charges. The collective sigh of relief that followed resonated within each soul present, binding the community in shared grief and muted celebration. Outside the courthouse, Rachel stood with Lucy's family, who donned expressions of tentative hope. There were no easy answers, but in that moment, justice prevailed, serving as a beacon amid the darkness. The shadows that had haunted them began to lift, and as the sun finally broke through the oppressive clouds, it illuminated a path toward healing, validation, and the promise that Lucy's memory would forever endure. The aftermath. In the weeks following Bradley Wilcox's conviction, Mallory Creek began to navigate the complex landscape of healing and resolution. What had once been a tranquil haven was now marked by an undeniable shift, a collective grappling with the remnants of Lucy Thompson's absence. The trial's outcome reverberated through the community, leaving citizens facing a new reality, a blend of relief and lingering sorrow that settled heavily in their hearts like fallen. Lucy's parents, Michael and Sarah, found themselves at the epicenter of a whirlwind of emotions. The verdict provided a sense of solace amidst their heartache, yet the gaping void left by Lucy's disappearance was insurmountable. They had spent months searching for answers, and now stood at the intersection of grief and a peace that would forever elude them. In the quiet moments at home, the sound of Lucy's laughter echoed faintly like a distant melody, reminding them of what they had lost. Rachel Foster, having immersed herself in the investigation since day one, was left grappling with her own complexities. The triumph of a successful conviction was muted by the weight of Lucy's fate. Days turned into nights filled with restless contemplation, as Rachel processed the enormity of the case that had consumed her. Watching the Thompson family take tentative steps forward, she was partially comforted and partially haunted by the knowledge that no legal victory would return Lucy to them. The townsfolk of Mallory Creek gathered for a candlelight vigil in Lucy's honor, an event that turned the town square into a sea of flickering flames, a powerful tribute to a girl who had touched so many lives. As candles were lit, the somber flicker of each flame represented shared loss and collective memory. Community leaders spoke of resilience, echoed by heartfelt stories from locals highlighting Lucy's impact, a reminder of the girl who once found magic in her surroundings. But as days faded into weeks, the scars remained. The anxiety that had swelled within the community transformed into a commitment to protect their children, to foster conversations about mental health, and to ensure the ugly specter of tragedy never eclipsed their town again. While meetings sprang up at the local community center aimed at addressing concerns, sharing resources, and highlighting the need for vigilance. Rachel became a crucial part of this new discourse, using her experience to educate and empower the community about the signs of troubling behavior. Restorative workshops emerged, focusing on healing for those affected by the case, including emotional support for families dealing with loss. The town became a unifying force, standing together to fortify the bonds of trust that had been tested. In quiet moments, Rachel would often wander the familiar trails along Riverbend, reflecting on the shadows of the past while embracing the commitment to the future. She found herself inspired by Lucy's art, realizing that beauty still thrived in the aftermath of tragedy. With each snapshot she took, she captured not just the landscape of Mallory Creek, but also the enduring spirit of a girl who refused to be forgotten. As autumn slipped into winter, a season of renewal, community bore the weight of their sorrow while clinging to hope. In every flicker of candlelight and in the laughter of children playing, Lucy Thompson's spirit lived on, an irreplaceable reminder that even amidst darkness, love and resilience could illuminate pathways forward, transforming future generations. Reflection. Months drifted by as Mallory Creek embraced a newfound identity, shaped irrevocably by the echoes of Lucy Thompson's story. The once serene streets now bore the weight of hard-earned lessons, an amalgamation of healing and remembrance interwoven into the fabric of everyday life. For those who had walked in the shadows of grief, reflection became an essential practice, a means to honor Lucy's memory while charting paths toward brighter tomorrows. Detective Rachel Foster found herself deeply entrenched in this transformation, her role evolving from investigator to advocate. Frequently invited to speak at community gatherings, she held space for discussions around the lingering effects of tragedy, mental health, and safety. In the hushed tones of the attendees, she found a resonancy, shared experience of resilience that extended beyond Lucy. Strangers who had once felt like mere spectators now emerged as allies in the fight for awareness and understanding. On a brisk December evening, with snowflakes dancing in the air, Rachel stood in front of a filled auditorium, prepared to share an initiative focused on educating children and families about safety. As she spoke, her heart echoed with the weight of Lucy's legacy, drawing strength from the responsibility to illuminate the darkness that had once overshadowed her community. Each testimony shared in the audience was a gentle reminder that good can arise from tragedy, and a shared commitment could weave light into the fabric of their lives. Later that night, returning home, Rachel felt the familiar ache of longing for Lucy, but it was accompanied by a soft, comfortable sense of purpose. While the world may never know the details behind her disappearance, the collective strength of Mallory Creek would continue to honor her memory, ensuring that her story sparked change and vigilance for generations to come. As Rachel gazed at the twinkling lights adorning the town square, she understood that each flicker represented not just a memory, but a promise to protect, uplift, and cherish. In the dance of shadows and light, Lucy Thompson would forever remain a guiding star, illuminating a path of hope and unity amid the scars of the past.